Hello again, YouTube. I'm driving to an audition at Knott's Berry Farm, and since the previous video in this format had a decent reaction to it, let's see if I can move this over a little bit like that, maybe. Perfect. It had a decent reaction to it. I figure why not try it again. So I would like to tell you the story of the karate place, which is right next door to the Home Depot, at which the other dumb shit had just recently happened. So that's kind of fun. So let me bring you up to speed on this. Right next to the Home Depot, in the previous discussion, there is an A-frame wooden sign on the sidewalk that just says the word karate and has an arrow pointing inwards. And I'd seen it for, a month and a half, 2 months now. And so I thought, fuck it, I'll go give it, I'll go take a look at it. So one day I went in and, I was dressed in normal clothes or whatever. And I pulled up to this place and I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna do that thing where I pretend to know absolutely nothing about a thing, despite, having knowledge about it beforehand, and just see how they treat me. Just see how they do it, And, so I walked in, and it was on a Friday, I think it was. And there was this huge Samoan man who was teaching, like, a private lesson or something like that. And he came up, and we had a chat. And I told him, oh yes, no, I'm an acrobat and a ballet dancer. And I always thought that martial arts was kind of fun. Which, that whole thing is completely true. I did not tell anything that was untrue. I merely left out, a large portion of information, but that's not the point. So, I spoke to him. I said, I always thought that martial arts would be really cool, and, I've been looking into it a little bit. And he, told me about his school that was there. And it's this tiny, tiny little school that's, like, in a little industrial complex. So it looks like it was supposed to be, like, an office complex, or, like, an office building, and it was just, they took it out and put mats in, so that's fun. But, he tells me about it. He goes, yeah, we're an American Kempo organization, so we teach you how to do real self-defense. None of this stuff that you're never gonna use. Like, we'll teach you forms, but all the forms are really useful, and we're gonna teach you how to fight in close quarters and how to fight inside of a telephone booth. And I was like, motherfucker, there's no telephone booths anymore. And of course I didn't say that. I just, oh, really? Is that so? I'm very, okay, sure, definitely. and he went on for, a little bit, and it turns out that the place is, like, really rad cheap. It's super cheap. Like, if you sign up for one person, it's $30 a month, and if you sign up for two people together is $40 a month, and shit like that. So it's mad super cheap, and that's not bad at all, I guess. And they have, practice 5 days a week, something like that, so you would be able to go in infinite times if you felt like it. And yeah, that's a decent deal, I guess. So, I asked when would be a good time to come in and try it out. And he said, oh yeah, man, you can totally, like, come in on, like, a Saturday, because we've got, like, beginner classes on a Saturday, and you can come in and try that. You get your first class for free, and that would be super cool. And I was like, yeah, okay, definitely, I'll come take a look at that. So I got my friend Cameron, who is a good friend of mine, a fellow cosplayer, and a fellow parkourist. And he's also had a little bit of experience as well. He did sensu and all that. And I brought him with me. And I got there before he did, because he had an errand to run or something. So I walked in, and I, like, put on my stretchy green pants that, I use for dance and that kind of junk. And I just started, doing ballet-style warm-ups. Plie, plie, grand plie, port de bras, that kind of thing. And, all the students in there, they were all little kids at that point. They were, like, looking at this guy, like, who is this guy? And so I did a little bit of acrobatics and, like, a butterfly kick and a back tuck, and all the kids at that point were like, oh, this kid's really cool, because he can do flips. He's probably a really good fighter. And I'm like, they were just whispering shit like that the whole time, and I was laughing really hard. And the big Samoan guy wasn't there this time. This time it was an elderly gentleman, maybe in his 60s, wearing, like, a pair of glasses. He had white hair scraggly looking white beard thing. And that's fine, whatever. I spoke to him. He seemed to be the owner of the school, and he detailed to me some of the important people that do this style of martial arts. Like, for instance, Chuck Norris did American Kempo. Never mind the fact that Chuck Norris also did Shotokan and, a bunch of the other arts and such as well. Chuck Norris is a student of American Kempo. As though that was supposed to impress someone? Oh yeah, okay dude, Walker, Texas Ranger is gonna roundhouse kick his way out of a telephone booth apparently, because that's what you guys do. So anyway, I kept playing it up, yeah, no, definitely, I'm a dancer, I'm an acrobat, so I'm no stranger to moving my body around, that kind of thing. And then, just before the class would start, Cameron showed up, and I had been observing an atmosphere up until this point, and there was one adult there, and it was the old guy, and then the other class that was going on was being taught by what appeared to be a 13-year-old kid to about an 11-year-old kid, and he was just teaching him how to do, front kick, step down, roundhouse kick, step down, step back kick, step down, that kind of thing. And that's legitimate. We did that back when I was in Kyokushin and in Shotokan and in all the other shit as well. But then the adult class started. So Cameron got there, and he changed into his stuff, and we warmed up a little bit more. And this gentleman showed up, and he was he had a problem making eye contact with you. So when he was talking to you, if you were right here, he'd look down here. He'd be like, oh yeah, man, totally, yeah, that's totally the way to do it. And he was super, impressed that we did parkour. When he heard that we did parkour, he was like, yeah, man, that's so cool, man. Yeah, man, that's so cool. Parkour, man, that's so cool. And, he just kept repeating it. And he wouldn't make eye contact with you, which was interesting. Whatever. He's cool. He was relatively strong looking, at least. But if he can't make eye contact with you, I'm sure that he would be easy to catch off guard. But anyway, so he did a couple warm-ups with us. He's like, alright man, you're probably not going to be able to do all the warm-ups right off the bat because, you're not a martial artist like us. And I was just like, oh, it'll be fine. And they did some, push-ups and sit-ups and that sort of junk. And I was just over here push-ups, yeah, sit-ups, yeah. And the guy just kept looking over at Cameron and me like, how are these motherfuckers doing this? How are they keeping up with us? Because there was myself, Cameron, and two others, two female girls, of course, two female fighters that apparently were 4 or 5 belts up in their weird belt system. Whatever. So we kept up really well and didn't miss any of the stuff that he was trying to make us do, and I guess he was very confused as to why we were able to do all of that. Despite me telling him that I'm a dancer and an acrobat and that we both do parkour and shit, it's as though he expected, since we didn't do his karate, that we would immediately be shit at doing sit-ups and push-ups or something, who knows. But anyway, he did the warm-ups, and then we all gathered together, the kids and the adults, to bow into the class. And here's the first really strange bit, because the elderly gentleman, the owner of the school, got up in front, and, he made us do this salute thing here, which this is a very Chinese-style salute, but whatever. And we held it here for a second, and he bowed his head and prayed to the Judeo-Christian God to help make us better at karate. And I was flabbergasted, dude, you are praying to Jesus to help us get better at karate? I mean, go for it, I guess, if that's what you're into. I don't know if that would be the thing that Jesus would be, really concerned about, is getting little kids better at beating up other little kids. But whatever. So, I shot a look to Cameron, and I said, I did not know that this was a religious organization. And Cameron just was like, yeah, whatever, I don't know, man. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird. So anyway, we go over, and another gentleman has showed up now to teach our class. And I swear to God, this gentleman looked like Colonel Sanders. He had the white hair that was, kind of slicked back. He had the mustache going on and the beard, and he looked like Colonel Sanders. He was even wearing the black glasses to go with it. He was just skinnier than Colonel Sanders. And he had a strange speech tick that I don't think I could reproduce, but it was strange. It was one of those things where you definitely know man that I've ever met, he could not hold a train of thought for more than 10 seconds. So, like, he taught us one thing, and then immediately, without explaining it, taught us a different, or tried to teach us a different thing, and then moved to yet a third thing, and then moved to another, and Cameron and I were just over here like, well, we know how to do this stuff already, but if we were beginners, we'd be fucking lost at this point. And of course, we are beginners to them right now, so they should be treating us like beginners, because to their knowledge, we don't have any other experience there. So, you know, he's like teaching us, okay, here's some blocks, and here's some kicks, and here's some punches, and here's a weird Chinese finger-raking form, and here's some other stuff that didn't make any sense. And, like, he taught us some basic techniques to use against assailants, and it was like, yeah, all of these are just, like, step back, elbow him in the nose, and then flail at his nuts, because that's all that it really was. So, I sort of lost my character. I broke character a little bit and started asking questions that he wouldn't be able to answer. Because he was talking about, like, stance changes, and he goes, okay, when you do a stance change, you jump up and change your feet and put them back down. And I was like, point of interest there, suppose you had any judo experience whatsoever, and you watched someone do that stance change, you'd be able to sweep both of their feet out of them with zero trouble whatsoever, and they'd hit the ground. And he goes, oh, well, we're just doing it that way so that we look athletic. So that you look athletic? You're a fucking karate fighter. You don't need to look athletic. You need to fucking fight. And so he had no answer for that. He was just like, this is just the way we do it, so that we look athletic. And I was like, oh, fuck it, sure, whatever, why not? And so he did a couple other things, and he was talking about, like, using only the first two knuckles of your hand, because the rest of your hand will break too easily. This is a point of interest. What about in Kung Fu, when they do the opposite of that thing that you said, and it's older than the first two knuckles arts, where they use all the bits of their hand for different applications and things. And he goes, yeah, no, those people are wrong. And I was like, are you telling me that 4,000 years of Kung Fu development is wrong because American Kempo says so? And he didn't have any answer for that one either. He just goes, no, that's how we do it here, because doing it any other way is wrong, and you might break your hand. And I was like, yeah, you might break your hand any other way, because y'all are cocking your wrist all kinds of weird to try to hit them with these first two knuckles. Just put your fist fucking straight. Whatever, anyway. So, it turned out that we did, like, a little bit of practice for the techniques, and so I just didn't do any of them. Like, he would go in to do the punch where I was supposed to, like, move it to the side and then step under and, like, step on his foot and knee him in the balls, and instead I just moved to the side and tapped him on the inside of the shoulder, and he goes, blah, 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 and, like, stumbles a bit, and it was like, what are you doing, man? You're supposed to be doing the technique. And I said, yeah, but this one is easier and works better and doesn't have all the 15 steps you have to recognize. And, you know, at the very end of it, like, we closed out class, and it was just so absurd how little of an attention span this man had, despite being the teacher of the adult class at the time. And it was like, no, dude, you couldn't hold a conversation if you had a bucket, let alone teach a class. So, we were leaving, and at this point the Samoan fellow came back, and so there was this guy, the Samoan guy, and the elderly gentleman. And the Samoan guy was like, oh, Vincent, I'm glad to see you back again. And I was like, yeah, totally, dude, good to see you again. Shook his hand. This dude is so massive. I wish he owned the school, because then it would at least be a little bit more useful, I think. But, it was ridiculous. And, like, I finally broke character at the end. I was like, yeah, I actually have, like, 17 years of Chinese martial arts and Kung Fu and Japanese martial arts and that sort of experience. And the teacher guy goes, yeah, I thought you had something going on. I was like, you didn't know anything about that. You are just saying that now so that you can try to cover your tracks. So, we ended up leaving, and I told them, like, yeah, no, I'll bring some people back. I'll bring my roommate in to give it a shot. And I haven't been back since. It was absurd. Well, it looks like I'm right about at Knott's Berry Farm, or at least I'm stopped in traffic in front of Knott's Berry Farm, so I will see you guys later.